I'm on my way to take a session on marketing, brand building, storytelling for employees of one of my friends, Vineet, whose startup is called Atypical Advantage. I'm pretty sleepy, haven't prepared for it. Don't really know how many people will be there, but let's see how that goes. Vineet is a big deal. He has gotten an award from the president. He studied in IIM Bangalore, and he was probably one of the only few visually impaired person to ever get into IIM. Vineet, say hi. मेरे कैमरे को.
Okay. Hello.
So it was a small but diverse team that oversees various aspects in Vineet's company, from UI UX, design to finance, strategy, pre-sales, training and upskilling, event execution, even marketing. And I'm doing this because I didn't really record the session, so I just want to do it like this. So I asked them, what would be the most value somebody like me who runs a storytelling consultancy for B2B tech and Deeptech company can bring to them. And they said one by one that they were all basically essentially interested in learning some practical storytelling skills that can help them, for example, translate technical jargons or business proposals to communicate in an emotionally impactful way for their audience. And I essentially had three main points to make, after which I just spent some time answering some follow-up questions. Number one, use the jobs to be done framework to really know your audience. Because everybody already agreed that fundamentally storytelling is about saying something in a way that the person listening to you finds it interesting, right? You have to really relate to them. And so obviously any effort that goes towards understanding this other person, the audience, is going to be super valuable, and you can do it organically over time. But I sort of encourage everybody to explore and use the jobs to be done JTBD framework to truly understand in a very systematic way who we are speaking to. It helps in multiple ways, from positioning your brand to knowing what to speak and when, etc. etc. JTBD is a short way to fast track our ability that helps ultimately in crafting a story that will resonate really well with the target audience. Number two, create curiosity gap to keep your audience engaged through storytelling. See, the core science of storytelling is opening a gap in the listener's mind, like introduce something unknown which is not straightforward, that makes them pause and wonder what happens next, and then you fill the gap, right? That's storytelling 101 or Story99. Simple in theory, but takes a while to master. Like, beyond this basic curiosity gap filling, there are only a handful of different narrative ways to create this gap. And once you pick few that you like to play around with beyond the obvious problem solution narrative, then you essentially are set on the journey to make your pitch or message incredibly engaging. Number three, when it's a brand communication, then there should be some repeatable messaging pillars that everybody uses. See, when multiple people in a company tell stories, it can result in a confusing, disjointed brand narrative. They might not add up together over time, and therefore every company should have few messaging pillars. We do that when we work with our clients. These are like anchor words and phrases which essentially end up acting like the core hero story of sorts. And then when all the employees, they repeatedly over time use these key phrases in their communication, it eventually builds a coherent and distinct brand story that compounds over time. Alright, let me just address some of the questions that came my way during this session. If the post is purely personal and not meant to represent the company, then I guess using brand language obviously is not required. But if as an employee or the team, your intention is to actually help your company's brand, then it does make sense, right? To use some agreed upon strategic brand language, strategic messaging pillars, agreed upon messaging pillars. And the logic is again simple, as I said earlier. Over time, using consistent phrasing, like repeatedly choosing a particular phrase over a generic alternative, that builds a strong mental association in the customer or prospect's mind. And there are enough research that prove that whether it's B2B or B2C, it essentially increases the chance that they will think of us when the contextual need arises. See, the context here is that Atypical Advantage, they put out a lot of stories of people with disabilities, obviously. But the stories are about, how the person got a job through the platform, or how they got a chance to work as a freelancer or sell their artwork, and etc., whatever happens on the platform. But most of these stories, they make it clear that the audience knows that these are stories about person with disabilities, and I think doing so definitely provides an immediate sort of narrative hook or a conflict that a story needs, right? A person with disability does something, you sort of want to applaud it, and it fits in the expected storytelling narrative, and which is why everybody does it. But why would you then not mention a disability? Because if you really think about it, it's not fair for disability to become the defining marker of a person, right? Every person with disability will tell that to you, right? It's just don't make it about my disability. But then when you choose not to highlight the disability, it obviously then becomes relatively harder to again tell a great story. So a lot more effort needs to go in finding some other conflict that will still engage the audience. But is it worth trying? Sure, I guess so. In fact, I encourage the team to then proactively start seeking out other unique personal challenges that can be used to replace the disability angle in the stories that they tell. After having read many books myself, as you can see, I'm not sure that reading books on storytelling is necessarily going to help much in practice. So to this group, I recommended, because I mentioned Jobs to Build, and there are a bunch of books on that, JDBD, and you can ask ChatGPT to recommend some books, doesn't matter which book, just read 2 or 3. I rather advise everybody to read books on JDBD than about storytelling, because once you understand how to understand your audience, there are some resources from Story99 that you can go through about narrative approaches. That should be good enough in my opinion. This was asked to me because I guess someone knew that I do these ad breakdowns to decode storytelling that goes behind ads. I think that's a separate thing in itself, so you can check out the detailed playbook on that. Essentially, every ad can be deconstructed across 3 layers: foundation, content, and impact. And I encourage you to read more about it here, because definitely looking at how ads are made is a great way to improve your storytelling. Yes, I think one can use, this is called Arabian Nights style, right? Where you decide in advance how a subsequent communication will build upon the previous one. Just that the timing of the reveal must be managed carefully, because if one waits too long to resolve the curiosity gap, the audience may simply forget about it, which might reduce the final impact. So, sometimes the trailer comes and then the movie never comes for a long time, and then the whole impact of the trailer goes down. So something like that. Alright, hope I said something useful here that helps you become better at storytelling. May you get to do more of what brings you joy and less of what sucks it away. Happy storytelling.